Okay, give this a go again. So, try. Good. Okay, so I did not get very much done last night, so I do need to finish the promotion stuff. I'm going to start with that. But then I want to move into getting more data inside of planning. I can start working towards maybe getting the planning items more fleshed out in terms of functionality and usability. Start really questioning what I'm doing there, and really kind of digging into what I think I want to do, what I think will work, and why I think it's different than just adding stories into a backlog. So that is my goal for today. To do that, you need this to not break. Return task.completed task. That needs a response. No, that needs what? Endpoint. Pretty sure I overrode it. Public override. Async task. Okay, we'll leave that like that for now. We don't need it. I gotta learn. I gotta go into more depth as to what the difference between handle and execute are. I believe, just looking at the signature, that is the difference in response. But I think if I had a response on there, this will treat it differently. But anyway, that's not really what I need to worry about right this second. So what I need in here is to figure out, we kind of went into this yesterday, is the infrastructure components for promoting. Now again, I feel that this is a piece that's going to go away. However, tenancies done. That knows about domain. Infrastructure. Tickets knows about infrastructure. Ticket knows about domain. Ticket knows about application. No, ticket doesn't know about domain. Still gonna get my head around the right order to maintain here. So application and infrastructure, that makes sense. Again, getting myself still in this world space, right? So application infrastructure. So this is application. So where do I want to put these parts? Canny. Good day. How are you feeling today? I generally don't like taking medicines and stuff, but if I'm sick, I'm not opposed to it. It's definitely something I'm willing to do. So what I'm trying to do right this second is think about where am I going to put these pieces. where do they lie? If I don't want to put HTTP services inside of my application, that's for certain. So I need an abstraction. So I think it's a domain service. Because ultimately what do I need to do? That's where I need to start. I'm not in tickets. Yeah, I am on tickets, yeah. Okay, so my use case is promotion. And this is promote ticket to planning item. Right. So public class command, public record command. The reason I'm not writing a unit test is because I don't know what I'm unit testing right this second. Right. Although actually, that actually might help me explore this a bit better. So let's do that. Let's write some tests. So concerning promoting tickets, when promoting ticket to when ticket has not been promoted, right? Promotion is rejected, right? So if you try and promote a ticket that's already been promoted, that can't happen. I'm using this to kind of think through the use cases rather than actually write the test necessarily, because I don't think that's something that I would actually want to deal with in a code perspective. From this perspective, I would probably want to reject the ability to promote in the first place. If I write that can happen, right? If I write that, when a ticket's already been promoted, then the promotion is rejected if you try and promote it again. Then yeah, I don't want to I don't want to handle that. So that's a bad case because I would want to prevent it in the first place from happening. However, this might be one of those kind of yes, but I don't want to create a problem in the system if I try and promote a ticket again, because then I would create another planning item. So I have to decide how promotion is tracked, right? That's one of the things I need to validate in here. Ticket has been promoted. Promotion is rejected. This is simple. Create our arrange act. Protected. So our subject in this case is public. Promote ticket to planning item is our subject. And in this case, our subject equals new dot handler. Actually, we need to make sure we're not just Let's create that nested type. Fine. And then subject dot handle new promote ticket. Yep. Get a waiter. I'm writing code I know doesn't exist. That's deliberate. So when I handle that, then I want to get the result of this result, and result will be public result. What would that actually contain? I think it would just be a result, right? And then result that is result result dot not that result dot status is result status dot forbidden. It's not a conflict. That's definitely not invalid. Yeah, it's an invalid action. Not a... Yeah. Hi, Osama. Welcome. How you doing? Okay, so this is easy to make pass. We create our nested type. That's going to be a record type. This is going to be a int ticket ID. There's no planning item ID here because Filter, good morning. How's it going? Nice to hear it. GUID user identifier. Look, no, I don't need that right this second, so I'm not going to add that. This is an I command with a result. Right, that's what this is going to be. Move that up here. And this is going to be I command handler of command with a result. Right, and then we're just going to do return. I still owe a response on the ticket, the story pointing filter. Actually, I've been trying to think about what you push back on, and I have like several lines already written in the chat box, and I just don't want to hit send because I'm still debating it myself. So, forgive me for not continuing that conversation because it is something I want to continue because I think it's something worth exploring. Especially as I go forward with this platform stuff, right? Because it is. So I need to move more into the center camera, right? It is very relevant to what I'm doing, right? Because if I'm building a platform and I'm saying, hey, story pointing is the way to go, then I have the option of saying, hey, this can be a useful feature and promote it through the system. If I actually, in the end, believe that it's just an add-on that people want to use as an excuse for something, then I can say it's just an add-on and I can treat it as such. So you can just turn on story pointing as a feature and have it layered on top rather than having it as an integral part of what is here. So I think it's very relevant to what I'm doing and very relevant to how we work, right? I've now, the irony here is I've been moved in my work role to a team that doesn't do points. They do time estimates. So, so we'll see how that goes. Yeah. Canny. So yeah, I get to question and test myself. Yeah. Thank you, Hardlight. Appreciate it. Hope you're doing well. The new manager definitely likes story points, and yeah, I think it's a conversation I'd like. I definitely will continue. I do, like I said, I have some points there. Some, um, I have some thoughts and opinions there about why they add value to the process. But we still need to determine, okay, what. So in this platform, the goal of this is to improve communication and improve visibility. If I do that, does that actually negate the need for pointing as such? I don't know. So for those not involved in this conversation, on the Discord, which is linked in the cards below, or below the stream on Twitch and in the card below on YouTube, we've kind of been having a conversation, a discussion, which I need to learn how to pin properly, about story pointing in agile practices, etc., and whether it's useful or harmful, and what are the alternatives? What do we do? How do we do this? And why do we do this in the first place? So, if you're interested at all in entering into that conversation, you're more than welcome to go and read our points so far. There are a lot of messages back and forth, and some documents. I mean, my only run-in with them was in dysfunctional organization, and I don't think any one thing made that org so toxic. It's good in the owner, of course. He absolutely was a cause. Okay. So, it could be an experience thing. It could be an opinion formed after looking at it and being using it. So that was kind of my goal of the document, was to kind of line out here's what it means to different people. But yeah, we'll dig deeper. So anyone interested in that, it is in the Discord. You're more than welcome. Yeah. You're more than welcome to enter into that conversation. It is not a closed conversation by any stretch of the imagination. As long as the points are, on task and not discouraging. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe that's a poll we do. We ask people around Twitch as we find them. Do you like story points? And they would be used correctly, would be much better. Right, so we're kind of debating how they use correctly. So result.invalid. Okay. So when ticket has been promoted, what are you still complaining about? Okay, this needs some data. So we need a ticket ID. So public int ticket, public read only int ticket ID equals 10,001. That needs a ticket ID, and then we can run our unit tests. There we go. So we now have a test to start to structure this. So when ticket has not been promoted, fact. So we need to kind of come up with something here. So ultimately what I'm saying is, promotion service is invoked with ticket details, right? But for using them correctly, you have to define them in a way that everyone agree on, and this can be highly subjective. Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of like the point. So George and myself and Dota carried on quite a large discussion. We kind of created some documentation, some documents as kind of output of that process. I shared a document that I've been working on for this project, which what I'm trying to do with this project is I'm trying to word why am I doing this? Right? What am I doing that's different here? What am I trying to tackle? So I think some of the points in there kind of lent into that entire discussion in terms of, the whole agile principle is, people and communication. I forget the actual wording, but it's about the people and the communication with those people than it is about processes. So if we're layering on, we are naturally inclined as human beings to lay a process on top of things, right? We will always find a way to add process to something to try and make sense of it, because what makes sense to one person doesn't make sense to another person. So it's very much something you want to make sure you are, for me, I want to think through this problem and think, what am I trying to solve? Why am I trying to solve this problem? Am I just adding more on top, right? Am I just adding more complexity? Or am I adding, what I'm actually trying to do, by the way, is get out of the way, right? I want this to be about product management that also work with developers, not developers who have to drive their entire day out of this tooling. And I think that's a common problem for us these days, is as developers, we are put inside of tooling and then stuck there. So we're kind of locked into processes because it helps other people. Well, I'm not saying take that satisfaction away. I'm saying just focus you on those tickets. Like, here's what you have to do today, right? Yep, I've done that. Yep, I've done that. Yeah, I've done that. Okay, good. It goes away. It notifies everyone that it's been done, everyone involved, etc. I want to get out of the way of that. I want it so that you don't even have to be responsible for telling people it's ready for deployment, or it's finished, it's completed, it's back with the customer, or whatever, right? I want to get out of that way, right? So that's one of the things we'll be testing as we go forward. People, depending on the job description, have different perceptions of story points. Clients want to use them for seeing the cost of a story, devs who want to see the size of a story, project manager who want to see the time of a story, but they are not strictly related to each other. So that the ask is something small, reasonable, as opposed to this huge thing that will take months. Yeah. Yeah. Well, the problem with time estimates is they're always wildly off, right? The problem with point estimates is that they can be corrupted very easily and misused used incorrectly, not misused, used incorrectly. So, I think there's a world in which, yeah. So anyway, I'm not trying to have that conversation on the stream, because I think it's a useful documented path in the Discord channel. But so I do have some opinions as to your points, and I would really encourage people, if you actually if you do want to hash this out, yeah, because I'd love different opinions, right? I think that's a key thing that I focus on, is that, just because I have an opinion and a view doesn't mean that it's right. It doesn't mean that it's the only way. So yeah. So that's but yeah, I want to make sure that, especially as I'm going into this project, that I'm building this in some really useful ways. Well, I think that's an instance of story points being abused and used in the wrong. I think the story points as small pointings should never leave the team. Is the way I see it. Everything else is just estimation, so that you can kind of prioritize and give some ideas as to what you can have. So, yeah. If a customer is seeing story points, then it's you're doing it wrong. Depending on what that customer is. If that customer is internal, then maybe that does matter to them. But I think you're doing it wrong if customers in general are even aware of the fact that you point things. We'll do this before we eat a lot of time. Fair enough. That's not going to change, right? Ian, the stakeholder's internal enough. Well, again, I don't think story points should really make it into should make it beyond actual granular story points should not make it beyond the team. The team stops at the PO. And then the PO to PM interface is one of large scale pointing, sizing, roughly, prioritization. But yeah, that's not, they've not got the right interests, because you're going to get POs that are pushing for certain things because they're vested in it. That's not healthy. You need someone that's team oriented, but or team focused, but not necessarily a part of the actual dev team, but is a good interface and a communicator beyond. And it's why, as much as I want to be a developer, I think that I'm better suited to management, because I think that I can fight that fight. Not that I want to be a PO. Yeah, it's not. That's a misuse of that process. But yeah, it's a conversation that I would love. I do want to continue. I do want to make sure that we are definitely addressing some of these things as we talk about this on stream, because it matters to every developer that goes through a process. Right? If you're developing in any professional manner, then you are being asked to do something one way or another by somebody else, and how do you control that flow? I got significant. Most of my meetings are scheduled. Much preferred. Yeah. Not the Scrum Master role. Okay. I'm going to keep trying to type, but I get the conversation is good. Private read only, private, promote, ticket to planning item is my subject. And what do I want to see happen here? So subject equals, and we want to say fact. How did I word it here? Promotion is rejected. Promotion is accepted. I still believe in Scrum Masters either. Oh dear. No pleasing you. No pleasing you. Private result. So result equals subject dot handle dot. Helps if you actually know what you're doing, right? Subject dot handle new promote tickets upon an item dot command ID, cancellation token none, get waiter, result. That's okay in this instance because I'm okay. When the PO is on the client side and had no time for the product, throw your problems just to the Scrum Master and he had to solve it. So yeah, we had a funny composition on our team. I'm so happy that I'm out of this project. So again, like I said before, we are our own worst enemy, right? When things don't work, what we try and do is add organization on top rather than stopping and looking at what's not working. We try and add more layers on top. So we add a spreadsheet, or we add a PowerPoint, or we add a meeting, right? Because we think that things can just be fixed by talking about them and demanding more, right? What often happens is we just rub people up the wrong way, right? So a Scrum Master is a master of ceremony, right? That person is meant to just kind of lead the ceremony of the Scrum, right? So whether that be a stand-up, whether that be a retrospective, their goal is to keep things on task, right? And stop conversations from happening. So if you're in a stand-up, good morning, Amal, by the way. Welcome. Hope you're well. I don't know why I said welcome. You're not a newcomer, but you are always welcome. You know, the Scrum Master is there to kind of keep things on point and keep moving forward, right? The goal there is because if you let a bunch of developers, I was going to say guys then, my apologies. If you let a bunch of developers sit in a room and talk about software, because of those opinions, that conversation can go on for days, right? You could actually probably leave them in there for days and they'd come out and be like, we're really hungry and smelly, right? So the stand-up, the Scrum Master is there to stop that from devolving into a software conversation and to say, hey, maybe we should prioritize this, or maybe we should have a meeting about this. And I think Dota, there's a term for that you have. And that's kind of the branch off of that stand-up. So the Scrum Master is non-official. The Scrum Master has no power or control. The Scrum Master is there purely to keep things on task, right? The Scrum Master is there to say, hey, in a pointing ceremony, don't cheat, right? Or to kind of keep things on pace. Because if you've ever stood in one of those meetings where you have a group of people and they've got to report to each other, there's that awkward moment of who wants to go first? And then it's who wants to go next, right? So the Scrum Master is there to say, you, etc., right? Scrum Master's not there to report. The Scrum Master is there purely for ceremony. So that role is just one of, I pass that around, right? I actually rotate that around my team. So if I'm working with a team of 5 people, over the course of 5 sprints, everyone will have a turn at Scrum Master, right? They've just got to take their part of the job because it's non-official. PO, as I'm trying to make sure I'm getting more correct with these terms. So the PO is the interface to the team. The product owner is the person who the team can go to and say, hey, I don't think this works this way. Can we have a discussion? Or, this story isn't right. We're missing some pieces, etc. That is that interface to the product team, right? The product manager is the one representing those things to the business, right? And again, the pointing doesn't affect the product manager, right? The pointing only affects the team and the PO. The PO only cares because they have to talk about priorities and they have to go to the PM and say, hey, we can have this button or we can have this screen, but we don't have enough capacity to handle both in this sprint based upon what the team's suggesting. However, they say that if we do this one first, then we might be able to get both or whatever, So their job is to represent the case and pass that down to the team as, hey, we'd like to do this, this, and this. And the team says, okay, we'll pick this up. And while we're at it, could you please prioritize the next set of items in the backlog so that if we do finish our work early, we've got something else to pull from in terms of priority. So the point shouldn't really ever leave the team, right? the developers should be just allowed to get on with developing. Look at ourselves once only when your customer isn't part of your structure. You can't change another company. Right. So you just don't, you interface with the other company in, to draw the analogy, there's an abstraction, right? Your interface to that company should not be your developers. If you put your developers directly in contact with a third-party customer, you are asking for trouble. Because most developers will feel that it is their job to please that customer, which means most developers will do whatever that customer asks them to do. Right. Okay, you're in a consultancy company. That's a different world, right? In terms of, your clients are asking you to do a job. So then you really should adhere to their work practices rather than vice versa, right? Unless you're being tasked across many consulting jobs at once, in which case I can see why you're stressed. Bureaucracy is good with a small amount of layers, so everything isn't decided on the fly. But when it's high enough, it becomes kind of slow, toxic, since people pass around the responsibility. Also, I can pretty much say no customer knows what they want to do. Right. That's why you hire experts, right? Nothing's perfect. Result dot status dot is okay. And yeah, the more companies tend to, again, companies like to put in layers. They like to pass the responsibility down. Organizationally, as a company grows and the responsibilities increase, they have to spread that load a little bit, right? So that's what it's for. And oftentimes companies don't scale that way. They can scale out the numbers, but they can't scale out the process. So that's when they're scrambling, or they get the wrong, people have no experience with certain practices, etc. So yeah. I'm not stressed anymore. I got my client to the mind of state. I work best when you leave me freaking alone and let me do my job. I actually made that sound more terrible a word than it was. So customer, now let me decide what's best for the product. They just throw things over the fence that has to be developed, and I'm allowed to decide how to develop it. Well, yeah. You're working in a realm that I haven't worked in, right? I've not done consultancy. I've been tempted, and I've tried, but yeah, an independent consultancy is something that I've considered as well. Would that change my perspective? I don't know. Guess we'll see if it happens. Yeah. So it's software development is challenging. It's more challenging when we add more stuff on top. You just deal with different problems on top of the dev problems. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure that anyone in here who is that loves doing what they do pretty much just wants to sit down and do code, right? So unfortunately, it's not what we get to do all the time. So guess this stream will have to do. Okay. We've got the no sound icon. Watching without audio. The least part of the job, especially when you do it correctly. Yeah. I did that last night. Twitch just tells everyone you're watching but not listening. Nice. Good job, Twitch. I'm sure it will eventually be consistent. Update. Okay, so what do I want to test here? So what I'm going to do, talking about abstractions, is I'm going to create a promotion service that this application handler will call. When it receives back that it's done it, it will say this ticket has been promoted. We're good. We can then focus on what that application so now we know that the pieces are in line. We can make that happen. We now need to decide how we're going to do the HTTP parts and create that actual interface or that object, because again that piece is going to get swapped out for a service bus call later on. So this gets me into an uncomfortable place. I mean, they're not wrong. Sorry, that didn't dawn on me. Watching but not listening. Well, I appreciate you being here. Thank you. Well, I got to meet my first ever skunk this morning, which was interesting. There you go. That icons gone. That was quite a moment. I was walking the dogs, and I turned around, and there's this little black and white creature right in front of me. And I'm like, "Oh dear!" And the dogs wanted to go for it. Like, no! I don't want that stink. So we almost didn't have a stream because if that skunk could have sprayed, I'd have been in trouble. But yeah, luckily it ran away. Yep, it's updated. So that was interesting. And I've seen one scurry across the road before, but never actually come face to face with one. Twitch mobile, every time I open it, it's like, I've got an update. Do you want to run the update? Yeah, sure. Okay, so I need. Let's go with the bare minimum right now. Let's put the interface in here and figure out what it's going to be. So this promotion service, what I should see is I want to see private I. You wouldn't have been in trouble. You just smelt though. Yeah. So this is an I ticket promotion service. Unicus, good morning. And let's move that for right this second. Let's move that into the same place as this. Good. And on here, we are going to have promote ticket. There's going to be some more information there, but we'll get that on. And we will then say that ticket promotion service equals substitute for my ticket promotion service. Sorry, just checking on the dogs. Sounds like they're asleep, but Wow, that's quite the text block. Okay. In the later stages of your life, you won't be able to solve most of the problems you encounter by becoming a better software engineer. The questions that will tire you the most won't be whether to write unit tests or not. It will arise from the areas where you haven't focused, such as being able to communicate with people, find common ground, express yourself, persuade others, and reduce stress. Lately, I've been reading more non-engineering books, exercising for the future. Okay. Yeah, and I think, like, I want to be a good developer, right? I want to be able to develop. I want to be able to work in software. But because I hold stronger opinions and because I'm going into my later side of the career, right, I do want to use what I've learned and the fact that I'm willing to talk about it for the better of other developers, right? So I want to be in a position of defending, or not even defending, you shouldn't have to defend development, right? But being able to argue for good practices, make the case for good practices, and be able to communicate with people and express, exactly why we need to do certain things. So it is something that's I'm passionate about, right? Because I think better software comes from less infrastructure and more focus on the outcome. The fun part, I don't even want to be a better dev regard to be a better gear in a company. I just want to practice the magic of our world to be the best the world ever saw. I'm pretty new, just observing, came up with this. You're not wrong. One of the skills a younger developer often doesn't have is that ability to talk to somebody, right? When I started, way back when, in the time before the internet was common, before Facebook, before Twitter, right? When I started developing, my role wasn't actually a developer. My title was analyst, right? I was a junior analyst. My job was programming primarily, but the biggest part of my role was, and it was internal customers, but my biggest part of my role was to go to customers, sit down with them, watch them do their jobs, and ask them why they do things and why they needed new things, right? So it's given me a perspective on the rest of my career that realistically, if you want to know what a customer wants, work with them, actually do their jobs with them. If it's a technician doing pest control, go along with them, watch them do their job, see where the trouble is. If they're using your software, watch how they use your software. I can guarantee you they will not use it the way you thought it should be used, right? Profits, welcome. Hope you're well. If you're a bit of a story. So back in 2004, I was tasked with writing a mobile platform for parking. So what it had to do is we had a central booking server that the customers could order on a website and say, hey, I want parking for this date to this date. And then I would take that, store that in a SQL server, and then someone could log in on a mobile device, on a rugged handheld, and it would then pull those details down. So then they'd go to the vehicle and they'd walk around the vehicle, they'd inspect it, and they could mark off damage, they could take pictures, etc., and it would upload that. Right. Awesome. So I asked to go and work on the trials with the actual people in the parking lot who would be checking these cars in, so I could see how it worked and make sure all the technology was running smooth, etc. So I go and I stand in this booth with this guy. No joke, within 5 minutes, he was using a pen because he couldn't find the stylus. He'd already lost it, right?
These were rugged handhelds with big chunky red styluses. He'd lost it, so he was using his pen and scratching the screen on a $1,500 mobile device. Right, 5 minutes. They were pressing buttons you didn't think they should press. They were pressing. They were not using it. They were putting it on the floor and leaving it, going around, looking at the car, then trying to record everything after the customer had left. They were just making notes. They were doing all sorts of things, because what it proved was, even though I tried to do this myself, I didn't understand how their job worked. So it gave me insight. So being an analyst to begin with gave me some valuable experience of going, talking to people and asking questions. So it is something you should do. And so to your point, Kenny, you're trying to be, you have to talk to the customer. You know what they want, and you've done that through experience, right? So yeah, users are dumb in general. We're dumb, right? How many times have you complained about Windows or Linux or whatever? Oh, that feature's ridiculous, right? We do it ourselves. We complain about other software. Doesn't matter how many times people say it, there isn't anything as a dumb question. The only dumb question is the one that isn't asked. If you're thinking the question, chances are someone else might be as well. Right. And if you're in a planning meeting, say it. Because assumptions about software are more damaging than anything else. So, by the way, would someone do me the favor to be the 800th follower? Somehow the 799 has triggered me the whole time. You won't regret it. Thank you, Kenny. Well, how you doing, my friend? Users are dumb. Technically, I talked to the tech team, the customer, building software for the customer. Yeah, it's the analysis phase of software development is often lost because those requirements have been filtered down. And I apologize if anyone's wanting to see development. I will be developing, I promise. If you have any specific questions about development, please feel free to ask. I don't want to just turn people away because I'm talking about this, but this is also software development, right? So the oh dear. There you go, I wrote a line of code. I'll pull off. Yeah, good discussion is good. I want to make sure that it's inclusive, but I want to know why. If people are after something, because I also see you do. We pretty much all do the same, right? At some point, we start paying attention to the viewer numbers, and when we start talking about things and see the viewer numbers dip, you've got to question: okay, are people bored of this? Do they like this, etc.? It's something that is very much balanced. Was this project the one you were trying to mock the DB context? No, I'm not trying to mock the DB context in this one. And that was the water drink water. Yes, I did. Oh, why do you love PHP so much? Yeah, I did get that test. I did get that test working, Junikus, on water. But being that I kind of do it when I do the I'll do the water drink water. We'll catch up on that one. Yeah. So that was working in the end though. I got the test passing and verifying. Turn off the viewer numbers. Yeah, I generally do. I generally do it when I'm not talking about things, but I turn it back on when conversation's actually active. It's something I want to keep an eye on. Because again, if I'm going to do my little spiel and because you don't know who's new in the stream, you want to make sure people are welcomed and invited and coming in and know what context to join in with. I got the projects mixed. I had to do an overnight. Yeah, so Monday and Tuesday I do water drink water. Wednesday through Friday I'll do this platform. And then on weekends I'll probably do, yeah. And to remind me, you asked for this, remember? I don't remember asking for it. I said I stream too early, and I don't give you much opportunity to troll. So I think I said that. I don't remember saying, "Hey, come on in, control. Why do I love PHP? Yes, let me count the ways. Okay, so I'm gonna see if that'll fail. This will all fail, right? So that's the point, right? This can't pass. There's no code for it. Yeah. How do I make this pass now? So to make this pass, I need to pass in my ticket promotion service. And then I need to say, okay, service.promote ticket command.ticket ID cancellation token. I don't give many opportunities. Okay, so to be fair, I didn't give you many opportunities then. You are just making the windows. Well, okay, point taken. I'll be better prepared. Okay, so now we've got to inject that handler, that service. Right, so we need our ticket promotion service in there. One of the reasons I like it in substitute is very much because the syntax for using substitutes is just so nice, and then you don't have to do dot objects, so it helps for readability for certain. Okay, so now one test will fail, the other test will pass. Well, yeah. Right, so if I now make that pass, the other one's going to fail. Pass all the way. I seem to remember that in this project you were thinking on what would happen on the promotion of tickets into a planning item. It was going to automatically create the promotion, or if it needed more info to finish the path. Was that it? So yeah, what I've done is I've kind of moved back to the ticket component of this to get the promotion to work, because I think this then triggers the need for more information. Right, that's what I'm kind of, through building out what I know and building out what I think I need. I'm trying to get an idea of what I actually need and what needs to go beyond. This is wrong, by the way. This isn't ticket. This isn't good enough. So yesterday you got that produce planning item, right? So we know that we need the tenant. We know we need the description. We know we need who we are, right? So those are the three major pieces, and then we also need the identifier of the ticket itself. So over here, what I need is a little bit more information. So there's no point in, if I do that now, success, right? Then one test will pass entirely, and the other test will fail, because now it's not rejecting anymore. EBS, as in bulletin boards. So I think there's still a need on the other side, on the ticket, on the planning item side, for the, thank you, Hardlight, I appreciate it, for the extra information. I think what happens is, in terms of workflow, okay, we're bringing out the diagramming tools. Does this have a dark mode yet? Yes. Okay. Wow, that doesn't make it much better because it's a bright white patch in the middle of the screen. But anyway, so ticket, right? Fill it with black. I suppose I could do that, right? It will be more visible. So we have a ticket there. That I don't object to. Right, I try. A ticket becomes a planning item when you want to promote it to a planning item. If a customer has asked for a feature, or they've said this is a bug, we look at it and think that's not actually a bug, that's an actual feature, then we want to do that. You need an Excalibur or Docker running in your lab. Joy. That's what I need, another diversion, right? So a ticket goes to planning, because the customer has requested something. We need a bit more detail on it, but it's definitely not a support ticket. It goes to planning. And then when it gets added to planning, obviously that's kind of in a interim state. So yes, we need to go and set the title. It'll get a review date of tomorrow so that they've got 24 hours to leave it there before it starts telling people, hey, just so you know, I've been sat here and nothing's changed on me, etc. So again, everything will have a review date, and I will have lots of processes for monitoring review dates that trigger alerts and notifications. So that's going to be a fun system to build. So yeah, the title, the review date. Well, then when an item's been added, we're going to have to put it in some sort of state of, hey, you need to review this now, because in 24 hours it's going to tell you either way. You need to update its review date, you need to update some details on it, etc. And then it can go into the planning piece. Now, I'm still debating whether I want to do more like a Kanban style for planning, or there's other options for planning. I think Kanban works well. Pointing definitely does not apply to planning. Points do not get attached on planning items. That's kind of a goal. And then a planning item, once it's ready for becoming a story, can get promoted to a story. Right. So there's a way off in the distance. Wow, I really can't write with a mouse. There's a story, right, that promotes. So review must run before planning. So the overall goal, good day by the way, pretty. Well, that was pretty. Yeah. I wanted to scribble, so I don't want to keep just messing with this, because I need to make a formal version of this to kind of get these ideas across. But for those that are new to the stream, or those just kind of hanging out, my concept is one of, I want to say a ticket is a support item. It comes in from a customer, or it comes in from an internal customer, but it is a support item that should be able to be picked up and worked on. Even if there's code changes, it should be able to be worked on pretty quickly and fixed. If an item requires more work and must become a story, it can be promoted to a story so that the development team can look at it. But if it requires more analysis, it requires more discussion and more detail, then it can be promoted to be a planning item. So a planning item is where the POs and PMs live, right? They would be working in this. Their views can be customized to their needs, and then yes, yeah, essentially. But then when a story has been planned, the pieces of what would become stories have been planned. they can be promoted to stories. And I'm still thinking through those pieces because I feel there's a need for, just because it's a planning item doesn't mean it's one story. I think a planning item could spawn many stories, right? So there's a workflow there. Because if you think a planning item could actually be brought down into an epic, right? A planning item could actually result in many stories because it is the epic. So you could actually say, hey, this planning item yields 10 stories and it's under this name. So the promotion of a planning item to a story becomes a bit more complicated. So what I'm trying, the thing that I'm trying to add that is a little bit different to this is the concept of a review date and notifications. So a review date is every item. Yeah, your planning item could be an epic, yeah. So every item, without question, has a review date. There is no question that's not an optional thing. So everything gets a review date. The review date triggers notifications. So if I'm a support rep and I add a ticket into the system, and that ticket is then deemed to be necessary for planning, right? It will be promoted. So I won't see the support ticket in the regular backlog anymore, right? I'm still kind of thinking through how I want visibility there to go, but I won't see it in the backlog. But now when it gets promoted to be a planning item, well, in most businesses that goes away, right? I just have to go and ask someone every now and then, hey, where are we on that thing? Or the customer calls in and complains, and all I've got is the notes on the ticket saying referred to dev and maybe a link to Jira, but I don't have access to Jira, so whatever. So my goal there is one of, if that planning item is has been worked on by this person, they will always be able to see where it is. They can go into the board and say, actually, that's actually just gone into development, or that's in planning still. And hasn't moved in 6 months, right? So, but they will also get notifications when review dates expire. So, if a PO sets a review date of next week, and that date comes around, notifications go to everybody to say, hey, the review date's expired on this item. And obviously that's noise, right? I'm not trying to introduce noise to everybody, right? What I'm trying to do is say, hey, you have the option of subscribing to these, or at least seeing these, or being able to review these and see the history. So the notification history would also be tracked, right? So you could say, hey, this has missed 6 review dates, right? So there's some level of, you could layer on top of, warnings or reports or whatever you want to do. But those can be added within the system. So the concept is one of letting the system tell people when things have expired, but also providing visibility to everybody involved in the process as to where things are. So you don't have to ask a developer, oh, where are you with that story? Or, oh, well, Jane gave me that yesterday. I don't know where she got it from or whatever. You don't have that conversation that slows things down. So that's kind of the concept I'm going with here. So for this part, this is the action of promoting a ticket. A user will trigger this. We'll have to talk about later on, I'll have to talk about what sort of permissions I want around this, right? But that's not really a concern right this second. Once I start to test this out and play with it, that's when that works. So promoting a ticket. So this is insufficient. So let's break this now. So on here, I need a ticket identifier and I need a tenant identifier. I don't need a description. Oh yeah, I do need a description. Yes, I do. Sorry. And it's helping me all along here. Yes. So ticket identifier, tenant identifier, description created by user. Right, those are what's necessary here. So this takes a ticket ID and it takes a GUID user identifier, right? No, so that's the user identifier. Then when we promote here, we need to be able to say we need a repository. my repository of ticket, ticket repository. So again, I'm going to go with an approach of there's no way a ticket doesn't exist here, right? If I'm hitting promote, then I've got that ticket up. I'm not going to write the and ticket doesn't exist test because that test is without value right now, right? If I find that scenario exists later on, as I'm developing and building the system, I will hit this problem pretty quick, right? So if I somehow manage to hit that point, then I can add that test, but I won't do it by default, because then what will happen is if I try and promote a ticket that doesn't exist, the system will crash. And by the time I get this to a point of actual testability, I will have layers of monitoring and telemetry that allow me to see ticket crashed. Why did it do that? And hopefully I should have enough data. So yes. So the repositories, this is our Dallas specifications repository, supports the idea of just get by ID async. So when it knows there's an ID, it will use that. So you don't have to create a specification for that because it's a straight up query on the primary key. If I just said I won't do it, but it could be null. This will stop the code from complaining that it is null, but I don't know why it would be. So I kind of don't want to write that, but what it's going to do is if I don't do that, it's going to ask me to do that all the time. So if I put the guard in, which I don't like doing because it can't happen. Yeah. You can't do that there, can you? No. No, you can't do that there. You have to do it there. Yeah. Ticket tenant identifier. Because I have the primary key of the ticket, I don't need to pass in the tenant that I'm doing this for because the tenant will come with it. So that's fine. Description is going to be ticket.description and command.user identifier is the person sending it. Okay. And that's that. So we now need a repository, public I repository of ticket, ticket repository. That was completely the wrong way to do that, wasn't it? And that takes there. And then we're going to have to figure this out, right? So let's get user identifier in there. Public read only period. User identifier. So if you're watching and you have any questions, any thoughts, opinions on what I'm doing, you would like to know a bit more, you're more than welcome to ask. You know, this stream, you know, I do love the discussion. I do. You know, keeping on the topic of software development and practices and all these things is something that I care about. So you're more than welcome to join in with the discussion. If you are interested, the Discord is linked in the panels below, and you're more than welcome to check them out. And most of the code I do on stream is this code is closed source, but I share libraries and stuff from this. They're linked in the GitHub in the cards below as well. So you know, feel free to join in. Have you run into the case where you need to change multiple entities at the same time? Yes. ZLS repository have the same method, not explicitly. So
So use cases. So register organization. So when you are signing up for the platform, right, you are a person with an email and you are signing up for a business with an address. So I create a tenant, but you are representing an organization. The components of this represent an organization. A person plus an address plus an organization plus a company name is an organization, right? So I created this and wrap it in a transaction. Because each of these things is its own command, right? Jimmy Bogard with SignalR, I remember reading the advice. Advice is against sending multiple commands from within commands. So I think this is kind of a get around. But I'm not sure I completely understand the advice there. But ultimately, this is kind of a coordinating action, right? I've called it a use case. It can be used again and again and again, and it returns the result and accepts parameters in. But what this does is it creates a tenant and an associated address. It registers a user, and then it associates that user with the tenant, and then it registers user with provider. So this is actually calling auth0 and saying, hey, add this user. If it fails at any one of these points, the entire thing rolls back. No events happened, nothing happens. Only when it commits is it going to save all that stuff. So yeah, that's that path. Apex, hopefully you're well. Are you another one that doesn't listen? Or is it is that the thing today to put on the no audio? I'm here with audio for a bit. Good. Hope the job's going well. Hope you're having fun, learning lots. Not seen a stream start up in a couple of days. Not that I have much time to attend, but I try. I miss my my stream pattern during the day got all kinds of messed up. Oh dear, that's not good. Seems to be the thing that people get. So we need to add that piece on here as well. To add the repository. A new substitute for repository ticket. And add that in there. I'm telling you, stop high-fiving people who are sick. You're just going to pass it around, can you? Okay. So what I now need to do is I need to set up the mock repository to say, hey, return the ticket. So repository dot get by ID async arg.is ticket ID. Helps if you use the right case. Returns, and now I need now to return a ticket. That's the whole point of joining the club. So if everyone's sick though, it's not an exclusive club anymore. Ticket.create. Oh yeah. Another challenge of my design here. So it doesn't really make a difference, right? Because I'm promoting it outside the system. No, this works okay. I don't need to worry too much about this piece. So what's going to feel funny is the fact that if I'm using that ticket ID, right, I can't use the pattern I'm using here because, again, I protect the internal fields. So I don't allow it to set the ID. Once it's created, it's created. Entity Framework will save it, it's just fine. But now the rest of the code is only ever going to see the identifier. Who needs exclusive equals singleton? Bad. I thought that was a game dev staple, singletons. Or Unity would have you believe that singletons are the way. Eh. I would bet that I'd go find several singletons in here right now. Not explicit singletons. I'm not using them statically. So when you're saying singletons, you mean actual singletons where we're using them? Yeah. Well, I took your advice and looked at Laravel and downloaded NetBeans and didn't understand a thing. So I downloaded Composer and used it with Sublime Text. Dropped Ion used to understand REST API better with Retrofit, which is going great. But once I understand API and modify XAMPP to work correctly, I guess I'll be able to understand PSR4 API correctly. No more PSR0. Good. Good. I mean, again, even if it's only for the experience, even if it's only so you can look back and say, now I know what I do or why I do it, then sometimes it's good to do something that you don't normally do. So, playing with other languages, right? I have considered it. I don't think it would be very interesting stream stuff because I don't have any real use for another language right now. But I have considered, picking up things like Rust, picking up things like Go. I have tinkered with Flutter, so Dart. Sometimes doing something in new ways opens your eyes to other ways, and it is helpful as a developer to develop, to evolve. The force to do strange stuff has been strong in you. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. If it opens up. I love JetBrains has this menu, right? This is actually rendered. This is if I actually have MSI Afterburner, this will give me frame rates and everything on here. It actually is a rendered like game screen. So I think this might actually be built using like Flutter or something. So because it's yeah, I've installed Rust Rover. Can't remember what gateway is. I kind of just download these things to have a look. Android Studio, Fleet. Fleet's kind of like JetBrains Visual Studio Code from what I understand. So I do install the tools and I do like to play with different things. I have like 6 different game engines installed right now. People kept recommending things, so I kept going downloading them and seeing what they like. C#, etc. Sometimes doing something different, approaching something like a web framework, right? Approaching it in a different way from a different framework, different library, etc. Sometimes gives you insights into what you actually do day to day that maybe you didn't have before. So I think it's always worthwhile funding that. Okay, so the point I was making before, by the way, was the fact that this object that I'm creating here will never have this ticket ID. I'm just returning it because I am asking for it by this ID. But I can't assign the ID because I trust the fact that Entity Framework's going to assign it normally, and I don't allow the user to change it or touch it, etc. So it kind of, this is the line where my attempt at solid API design conflicts with my ability to test. So yeah. It was a tool to remote develop on another machine, so the other machine is hosting your IDE. Oh yeah, I probably wanted to tinker with that. Because I probably want to tinker with. I probably want to sit more in the living room with my MacBook and code. When did you start using Rider on the regular? It hasn't been long, right? I kind of recall you using Visual Studio. I've used Rider pretty much consistently for the last year now. Towards the end of my major streaming run, I kind of started to use it a little bit here and there. But in the last year, it's really become my go-to. And also, Visual Studio, I had a Visual Studio subscription, a professional subscription, and $800 a year, I was done paying for that because the entire JetBrains suite cost me $170 a year at this point. So, more than worth it. Even if they put the prices up a little bit, it'd still be worth it. Not that I'm actually asking for that. So we need a tenant identifier, customer name, all this information, right? Private read-only period, tenant identifier, private read-only string, customer name, private read-only. What am I doing? Get sets for customer name. Private read-only string description. Description. Read-only. What else do I need? Have you thought about using their new AI thing instead of GitHub Copilot? If they didn't charge extra money for it, yeah, I would absolutely do that. But I already pay for Copilot, right? Or I pay for GitHub. And yeah, I subscribe to Copilot, so. I'm not paying extra money on top of something that probably is essentially Copilot. And I actually don't use Copilot. I kind of use it for code completion here, but I don't use the chat window very often. I don't ask it things, which I probably should. If anybody has any good experiences of doing that, by the way, of using Copilot chat to actually help develop, I would love to know. How do you use it? What do you use it for? Because my experience so far of any of the I don't know even the correct terms for them properly. Any of the AI tooling has been that it often gives you what it thinks you want, whether or not that exists. So it can often lead you down a stray path of, it's not actually valid code. So yeah, it's not laziness. I don't think it's laziness because you're not trusting it 100%, or you shouldn't be trusting it 100% to write your code. As an experienced developer, you understand what it's doing, and if you don't, that's when you go off and learn something, right? So it's taught you something maybe, but I've rarely found it give me code that I didn't understand. Sometimes it's suggesting things that I wouldn't have actually thought of. So yeah, okay, I appreciate that. But I think any code that it wants to offer you, you should actually review all the time. Okay, so tenant identifier, customer name, description, user identifier. Well, ChatGPT is currently, it's definitely not the tool to use. I'd rather go through millions of Stack Overflow than using it. Stack Overflow isn't quite what it used to be. Problem with Stack Overflow is the dated advice. A lot of it is just not good. Um, 3.5 is mad, but 4 makes usable stuff. The advantage of ChatGPT is that you get things you weren't looking for sometimes, like extra ideas, or things to think about and research you didn't know of. Generated a simple template engine for Godot out of GPT-4. That's nice. I saw the code. I didn't. Yeah. So should I pay for 4? Because I'd do it. Yeah. Still have access to 4 without paying, right? Or is 4 behind the paywall? To that point, Apex, actually, it's kind of like why I like streaming and why I promote not just assuming that because I'm experienced, that I know more than you do, right? Or your different perspective, your different experiences, even if they're newer, will often mean you have something to contribute. So it's not about having different perspectives and different opinions is useful. So to that point, I can definitely see where it's useful. And like I said, I've used it mainly to fill in code anonymously. Meanwhile, ChatGPT 5 for privacy. Yeah, special API, special GPT built off even more knowledge, private information. Bard is getting good too, and hugging face chat seems to be not bad with the right one. Again, it's just one of those things where there's so much technology to play with, so much tinkering to do, so much learning to do. I do have ideas about how to use some of those tools from what I know of them. But where do I spend that time? Where do I prioritize? Be honest with yourselves, right? How many of you have finished one realistic project, a personal project, more than one in the last 4 months? Or how many times have you got distracted and gone off on a tangent or tinkered with some other thing or some other thing, or there's this other thing over here that you want to play with and you go and play with that? Right. So how many projects have you finished? And it gets ever harder. I wonder why the topic here is about AI, but hey, good to see some streamer doing C#. I'm a fan. The topic here is about general software development and practices. This started from me saying about Copilot and whether people use it in their actual day-to-day, like Copilot chat, right? I don't use this feature or this feature very often. So, and welcome anonymously. Yeah. I'm a C# developer. I do this on the stream 5 days a week. What I love doing, what I love talking about, and what I love sharing. So, welcome to the conversation. Mr. Anhorn. Good morning. Use the debugger. Does that have an A? Yes, it does have an A. Okay. What is that? Is that finite? Debugger. Okay. I don't use that package. Yeah. I pay, but I think I'm mainly using the completion service. So yeah. Okay. So we should receive. So from here we should see user identifier, right? And so let's distinguish between those two pieces of information, right? Just for the sake of the unit test, make sure that if we have to read it back, we understand what it is. It is different information, right? So this is that, right? I don't want to make it use the same user identifier because then it can confuse the process, right? This ticket is being created to support this test, not to say that this user that's doing the promotion created the ticket as well, right? So the users will be different users. So I want to make sure that's very clear in the test. I find it funny that Twitch emoji guidelines forbid text, but so many people love emojis with text. Twitch tries to forbid a lot, then tries to allow something, messes it up, doesn't understand their own platform. Their docs don't make any sense. So, you know, as long as they get people watching streams and the numbers are decent, they're not going to push back too much. Is this project related to Kanban? Kind of. So this project is my proposed Agile project management platform is the way I kind of theme it, right? I have some thoughts around doing it. I've done it for many years. So my thought, and this is the ramblings of a crazed developer, not any sort of real organizational chart, but the concept is one of starting with support tickets to get into stories, right? So and right now I'm focused on this part here. So when a ticket becomes more than just a support ticket, it needs to be promoted and go through more steps. So Kanban, Agile, you know, all those lovely buzzwords. Are you going to create a Jira extension? I don't know about that because this would be directly as they apply Trello. So yeah. So what I'm focused on is the task of getting out the way of the developer, right? Because most of these things in the day-to-day are used by product management and management in general. The developers have little care about where something lies. They just care about what they need to work on, right? So I'm kind of focused on getting well-developed information through the system, providing transparency, and getting out of the way of the developer so the developer can develop and not care about swim lanes and planning and pointing, etc. too much. They can just worry about, here's the work I need to do, here's the work that I've done, here's where things lie in terms of release from my perspective, and that information can be relayed. So my first iteration is going to, and I'm kind of been working on this last couple of days in terms of my focus, is going to focus on this planning items piece, which would essentially be Trello, right? Or it would be a Kanban style board, because there's no need for this to be sprint, etc. It is Kanban, and build that focus there. So yeah. And my goal right this second, and again, I'm still trying to refine these things and document these things for me. Documentation, not my strong suit. Essentially making this workable so that I can still hook in these pieces afterwards, and then releasing this as an actual usable product to start gaining some idea of usability and the flexibility I need. And also deployment and all those other fun things. So essentially Trello. Yeah. But I still want to hook these pieces up because these pieces are going to tell me what I need for the future. So this ticket promotion stuff is still going to be there. It's just not going to be a primary focus once I've got these pieces in place. Tenant management will be used because tenant management is when you sign up for the service, you get assigned information, and that gets promoted, and then planning items needs to know about your tenants, users, etc. That's the Kafka piece, which I am woefully behind upon for today. Well, it looks like my title didn't change. It still says promoting a ticket. I think my YouTube title does not say the same thing. Using Kafka, yeah. I apologize if you're in the YouTube stream and wondering where the Kafka is. No, I'm more than happy to answer. Oh, I missed someone in YouTube as well. My apologies for that, Bodrin, if you're still around or even watching the VOD. I do apologize. I didn't realize I'd missed a YouTube chat. So all the videos from this stream do go to YouTube. I stream at the same time, and they're also there
saved, right? So, yeah, if there's things you missed, there's things you want to review. I've been doing this for a few weeks now, but I'm always happy to talk about it. I'm always happy to discuss. Before I go, can you suggest a good terminology to stack me up with more knowledge and understand how to work with REST API before I sleep? Good terminology to stack me with more knowledge. Off the top of my head, how to understand how to work with REST API. I mean, the specification for REST API is pretty good. I mean, what's your use case? What are you trying to achieve, right? Think about the objects that you're actually working with, and then maybe read the documentation on RESTful and see what would you apply, how would you do it, and then I'd say drop it in Discord and ask people to review with you. I think, again, RESTful means a lot of things. One thing I don't try to do is RESTful APIs right now. I think what I focus on more is being able to make an API. Thank you. So make an API and then see what it means to make it RESTful, and see if you understand why you would make it RESTful. Because I often think that most developers don't actually need a RESTful API. I think that ticketing system of yours can also be used on other stuff, B2B. Yeah. I think there's a lot of this is management stuff. It's not developer stuff, right? Developers don't even come into it until here, and I don't think developers care about 75% of this. So everything else is management and planning. The reason I'm putting ticketing in there, so platforms like Jira do not do ticketing. You have integrations with other third parties, etc. Which actually, Mr. Anhorn, on the Jira extension idea, I have no idea. I don't even know what I would do with this to do to do a Jira extension, unless it's literally feeding my stuff in as stories into Jira, which would be hilarious. But yeah, ticketing is not a normal component of this process. We kind of have integrations, and that's kind of my point, is things get lost in the mix, right? Once we start adding information, it's where are we with this? Do you remember that's which ticket? Put a ticket in, etc. Or the other way around, where you feed Jira into your platform. That would be quite fascinating to work on, wouldn't it? But yeah, the information flow and visibility is kind of my focus of this platform. So that's what I'm going for. Not ticket, that's ticket identifier, not ticket ID. Cheers, bloke. Thank you very much for the follow. Thank you for being follower 800. I really do appreciate it. Private, read only, queried. Anonymously, thank you very much for the follow. 801. Really do appreciate it. Thanks for the support. But now it's gone to an odd number, Canny. Now it's 801. The 799 was triggering Canny a little bit. It's like, come on, we can get there, right? So cheers, bloke. Thank you for the follow. Welcome. This stream is very much one of talking about code as much as it is doing the code as well, right? So I'm not trying to necessarily teach something. I'm trying to write the code that I'm going to write. People have opinions. If they want to pass those opinions or ask questions about what I'm doing or why I'm doing something, or just follow along, that's perfectly fine. You're doing what I've been learning the last 6 months. Cool. So for reference, I have been a .NET developer for 20 years, around 20 years, yeah, 20 years. I've been a developer for 25 years, but most of my career has been dedicated to .NET. I just feel that I love doing this. I love learning. I love growing, and I love sharing. So I can pass on some things. If I can grow and learn in different ways, then that's what I want to do. So that's why I'm doing this. I just finished an assignment on testing, training, and install for information systems like an hour ago. Fun. Hands down. Nice. You enjoying that? Okay, so these unit tests are aimed at just verifying. So the fun of this is I'm writing unit tests that will fail. Expected to receive. This one's going to fail. I know this is going to fail. That's fine because I haven't defined what rejected means yet. Promotion service is invoked with ticket is invoked with ticket details. That doesn't happen. Why doesn't it happen? Should happen. Expected to receive exactly one call matching. Actually received any cancellation token 14E3. Ah, there we go. Leave the wrong user ID. So I'll receive the wrong ticket identifier. Yes, it did. So this is a challenge, right? Because I've tried to define this ticket identifier, but I've created a ticket. I don't get to specify the ticket. My API says I'm not allowed to specify that. So how do I do this? So what I do is I say info goes to var ticket equals. Then I move this out of my read-only block. Out of my read-only block. That. Right. I allow that to be set. Say ticket identifier equals ticket identifier. Return ticket. That could be null. There you go. So the problem was that when this gets created internally, it has a GUID. It gets created. It creates its own GUID when it creates. But I was trying to dictate it, and you can't do that. So I'm going to capture it. So this allows me to intercept the return value of this, and then get information out of it, and that's okay. Right? I'm not lying here. That this test is not invalid because I'm doing that. Now, when a ticket has not been promoted. So if the ticket hasn't been promoted, and if you're used to unit testing, my style is an evolution of just years of doing the unit tests in different ways and finding my preferences. So don't be afraid to ask, but also don't assume that I'm going to follow anyone's dictated standards. I'm a big believer in making sure that code in general is something that I should be comfortable navigating and I should be comfortable writing. I will try and follow standards and I will try and align because it's easier for people to comprehend and to understand. But in certain things, my practices and patterns have evolved to a different place. So this is not the unit testing that other people write. So yeah. We do have, by the way, if you are new to development in general, tests on a Twitch stream. I'm starting to see that more and more. go to your stream if you want to see tests. you want to go check out this. Um, am I seeing a DTO structure? Are you seeing a DTO structure? I don't know. What do you consider DTO structure? Tomorrow's stream will be very different, by the way. So today, I have an Elgato prompter arriving. So if I can get it set up tonight, tomorrow's stream could be very unnerving because I could be looking at the camera because I'm reading chat off the screen on the camera. Right now, I've got it below here and it's up there. But tomorrow I'll try and make it so that it's just in front of me. Yeah. That's it. Water, drink water. So Water, drink water is a viewer-friendly project. It's written in a not stunning way to start with. It's written in a very quick way, kind of just a simple layered architecture. Nothing of any developed nature. It is deliberately meant to be a discussion project. It's meant to be, if you want to contribute to it, you're more than welcome to. If you want to do your first PR and get used to that process, you're more than welcome to. There's some simple stuff on there, and we'll add more simple things as we go. It's not meant to be a perfect project, but it is meant to be one that is friendly to beginners and experienced developers alike. It is not one where you get to flex and say, "Hey, look, I improved it all. I made it my way." That's not the goal. But every PR will get reviewed on stream, and I kind of work on that on Mondays and Tuesdays, so that there's many days in between those streams for anybody to go off and do what they want to do or ask questions, etc. So trying to gain a little traction with that. But again, if you're new to development in general, feel free. I like that project. You've been trying to get a discussion project going for so long. Yeah, I have. It is kind of something that I feel would help, right? Because it's context. And that's what that's, 5 years ago, that's what we were talking about, right? When we're talking about like gaining that context with pizza as a service. That was some fun discussion, right? But I think the the limitation of that was the size of that, right? With retrospect, in retrospect, just the sheer ambition. And I think Water, drink water is a much simpler concept with some very simple ideas that can be implemented in all manner of ways, but also expand little bits of discussion, like the whole talking about date times and then talking about fluid ounces versus milliliters, etc. So there's lots of different things. So if you're new to development, or generally new to development, and want a bit of experience and a bit of practice, that might be a good project to check out. And again, in the Discord, there's a dedicated channel. You're more than welcome to ask questions. I want it to be collaborative, right? So it's not like you have to write perfect code or you have to make it to the same level I expect, etc. That's not what I'm after. What I'm after is providing a tool for people who want to learn or want to grow an ability to do that. So, Flux, good morning, and thank you very much for the resub. Appreciate it very much, sir. That Raven, good day. How's it going? If it's not so focused on my side, I would interact more. But I'm sitting. Absolutely, that's absolutely fine, Mr. Anhorn. I totally understand. You've got a lot on your plate as well. But I appreciate anything at all that comes that way. So it's there if people want to use it, right? If you want to check out that project, go ahead. If you want to take that project and build it on your own, go and do it. Right? That's kind of, I don't mind. I mean, I'd prefer you to make it collaborative and community focused, but yeah. Okay, so now I've got one more concept to introduce here, right? I've got to introduce the concept of what it means to say it is promoted. Now, is that a flag on the ticket? Is that an extra table? I think a flag is the quickest and most practical thing to apply here, right? Ultimately, what I think should happen is when the planning item has the ticket promoted into it and it's accepted it and everything, this will publish an event to say that the planning item has been produced, and that the ticket will pick it up and assign a planning item identifier to it, right? This doesn't need it. The ticket, you're not going to need necessarily to go and jump to that planning item, but then it will allow it to kind of close the circle a little bit. So, once it gets promoted to a ticket, from a ticket to a planning item, the difficulty with that is I don't want to necessarily provide the link, because just because of permissions overall, right? But maybe that's the way it goes, right? You provide the link and then you can navigate and see the planning item. You can see where it is, what discussion's gone on the planning item aspect, because the ticket would only see the ticket discussion, right? Anything that goes on beyond it. So I'm still trying to figure out some of these things, because now I've started to put meat on the bone as such. It opens up all these different possibilities and ideas and thoughts and stuff. So I'm kind of madly scribbling down things at times and trying to figure things out as to what I actually want to do. I have a document. I scribbled down everything when I first started. Like, here's the idea, and the concept of this started from a phrase, "pass the ball," right? Because what often happens is, you're working in an environment and someone's doing something, but it needs to have someone else working on it, right? And the ball kind of gets passed to that person, but no one knows about that, right? That has to be relayed or discussed somewhere. So that's kind of where this concept of communication and eventing comes from, in that if an item needs to transfer to a different team, that item transfers. The other team doesn't get a new ticket created for them, and then the details get passed over. That item transforms into another item, and that history is logged. Ooh. So yeah, so that's what we're doing. So tickets to planning items, I don't really need to do anything advanced here. So ticket, right, the second, I need to write something up on this. If you're looking at this and you've seen entity framework before, this is going to be like, ugh, why are you doing that? You don't need to do that. And it's going to create that conversation every single time. And this is one of the bigger ones so far. Defaults and I talked about this the other day, and I was kind of like, well, this does serve two purposes, but the effort involved in trying to make this do two different things would break. It just would be way more complicated, and it wouldn't add to the value of the software. So I'll live with this. Anonymously, I'm still curious. When you say, "Am I seeing a DTO structure?" I'm not sure what you exactly meant or what you've seen. So if you want to explore, if you want to ask that again, that's you're more than welcome. Okay, so on here, it's essentially just a boolean. Is promoted, right? That needs to change. That can't work. That's not going to work. But public void mark as promoted equals true. So the benefit of doing this thing is, what I can do in here, right, is I can say ticket was promoted, right? And this can have period ticket identifier. It's an iDomain event. Public period identifier equals ticket identifier. Now, from here, I can say add domain event, new ticket was promoted, and that would be identifier. I might not use that right this second, but now when I come to do telemetry and stuff, I can actually see that event happen because I can actually record the handles for these things being published, etc. And I can put a layer of notifications in there that says, okay, here's the things that happen. So I can actually trace through the system and understand this action created these events. I looked it up. A data transfer object is an object that is used to encapsulate data and send it from one subsystem of an application to another. Yeah. So my question was because anonymously said, am I seeing a DTO structure here? So DTO is often used to, so you have your database models. So these are objects in my database, right? These represent tables, essentially. These are one-to-one with tables. But oftentimes, this object here is not necessarily what you want to see in your front end or even further up. So you create data transfer objects to transfer data from one piece to another and kind of map back and forth so that you are not presenting this information. It's just I didn't understand how that question was asked in terms of what part of the structure. So the way this application works is at its basic. I'm getting a center screen, that's all. Can I zoom on this? Cannot zoom. I have these four components are the core components, right? So, gotcha. So the API, so under a folder, this is my organization of this. Under a folder, I have an API layer. I don't explicitly say it's an API, but this is an API. The API has an entry point, at which point I say, hey, do a thing, right? So in this case, I am posting to the register endpoint, which means I'm registering a new organization, right? I have this object that contains all the data I need, and I pass that forward as an object into this method. Ultimately, and I'm not going to jump into the use case thing, but ultimately these become handled by these handles. So I'm using a library called mediator. From a beginning perspective, this is not necessary. This is just a little bit more more layering on top. And then this, I say, hey, do this thing. I hand it some data as a command. And now it does the thing inside of this class, inside of this handler, and it returns its result. In here, though, it will create a user. So this is a tenant user. So this is a data model, right? But this data model is not visible from the API layer. It's only visible from here and up. So it's just kind of like making sure that things are cleanly separated. So the DTO style, the DTO thing is basically transforming one piece of data into another piece of data, etc. So, water drink water actually might demonstrate that a little bit better because I've tried to at least make certain layers. Oh no, we're at time. So, water drink water. I'll close this down because I'll finish anyway. We'll not go into the time zones and stuff. That was quite a journey. So in this application, I've created 3 layers essentially. We'll go into details. API, application, and data. Right. So API is the piece. To be honest, I'm trying to switch on .NET. Okay. Yeah. The API is the actual piece that is visible to the client, right? I'm going to get data, I'm going to post data, etc. I've been working on Laravel for 5 years. Okay. Yeah, my day job right now is a PHP developer. So, so my endpoints here, I can get data in and I can get data out through here. They go to the application piece. Not where I wanted to be, if I'm being honest, right? C# is a good language. It's evolved a lot. A lot of what we're looking at here, by the way, is not object-oriented. It is very functional in its behavior. Yes, there are classes, but most of this .NET code is more functional in its style than it is object-oriented. People worry about working in something like C#, like, I don't know about object orientation, I don't understand it. You often don't need to, because most of the libraries and stuff these days are very much, hey, do this, do this, do this. So the classes really are just made to either, again, transfer data back and forth, or they have a behavior. And normally you might have one method on that thing that does a thing, because of, separation, solid principles. So that's often the case. So in this case, this is a bit more, this is deliberately doing a bit more than it should do to have that discussion later on. I'm doing Java at the moment. Right, so the skill set is not wasted, right? If you're a developer, you're comfortable with working with languages, and if you want to go off and look at something, it's not too difficult to, especially with Java, it's not too difficult, I would imagine, to go back and forth. Well, this application, so essentially what I call a view model here is that DTO, right? So I'm taking the data out of my database, I'm translating it into this object called a preferences view model. It's called a view model because it gets returned down to the client, right? So that is a DTO. The data, you'll see some frameworks that have that, right? But whether you call it view model, DTO, etc. If you're passing data back and forth and you need to kind of get it into a common form, it's a DTO. At the moment, I did a sample API from .NET Core with DTO repository structure. Okay. Nice. But yeah, so this application is built to be one of discussion. It's built to be one of if you wanna implement a UI, right? If you want to work with this API and you have some client you want to build, right? Build a client, do a PR. It kind of overwhelms me to see the flow of it. Working with software that you don't understand, it's just kind of taking a bite out of what you do understand and trying to build your understanding, tinkering, sending a message, understanding, if I change this value, where does it go? Debugging is often a useful tool as well here, right? I don't know where to start with .NET. It seems complicated. It's not too complicated overall. It's hard for someone who's been doing it for 20 plus years to just say, yeah, it's way easy, right? I actually remember the first time. So .NET traditionally, right? So a traditional .NET console app would look like this. Namespace, my simple project, public class program, public int main, int args, or arg, sorry. It's been a while. Right? So that would be normal .NET. This is your entry point, your main, your whatever you want to call it, and then you can do console.writeline, hello world. Right? That still works in modern .NET, right? Well, they simplified things a little bit, right? So again, on the whole functional piece, right? All that class is doing is providing an entry point to the application. So in modern .NET, they kind of got rid of that, and you now have just, you can actually create a new console app, right? Console application, console app 2. I mean, I'm just amazed this is much easier to work on C# than Laravel. Yeah. Well, okay. Okay, Deflux, come on, jump in. Do you have an opinion? So if I start a new console app now, let's see what it goes here. That's it. That's a new console app in C# these days. Right. Now, underneath, they've probably still got that main entry point, right? Because that main entry point is when the program is built, it is told where to start, right? It said, hey, here's an executable. There's where you begin, and everything starts from there, right? So writing a .NET app these days, there you go. That's a .NET app, right? Now, obviously, there's more involved, but I can write my classes. I can do whatever I need here. So, and it's just building upon that knowledge. What about a Windows app? Well, depends on what you mean by Windows app. That's the problem. That's where .NET gets more complicated because there's obviously options for those things. If I do a new solution, this is where Rider is not the best tool for this sort of stuff, right? Visual Studio is better. No, .NET is true cross-platform. In the docs, it says using that is just for prototyping. Advise against doing what in prod? I'm intrigued to know what you're talking about. Are you talking about? Okay, inline statement stuff. Top level statements. Top level statements. They advise against doing that in production. Interesting. I mean, underneath it's doing all it's doing is abstracting that away. So that's interesting. That I would see. I mean, I'd be interested if you post that in the in Discord, because I I am way running over time right this second, and I need to get a job done. So, I mean, getting into .NET, getting Windows applications, so .NET is not just about Windows. .NET is true cross-platform. If you want to write a program that runs on Linux or Mac, you can do that now. If you want to write cross-platform visual applications, there's Maui, and there's a whole other host of things. Website stuff, Blazor, actually not just website. They kind of blur. Blazor, Maui. There are lots of different tools, so there are options out there. Yeah, .NET's not quite as scary as you might think. Absolutely, you're more than welcome to. I appreciate you hanging out. Considering you're doing Java, I really do appreciate. I appreciate you joining in. I'm more than happy to discuss this stuff. Yeah. So, Deflux, I would be interested in the link to see why not use that in production, being that most of their samples actually show booting up from the top level statements, and they focus heavily on minimal APIs, which is all from top level statements. Read the summary. Let's see. Top level statements make it easy to create simple programs for us for use to explore new algorithms. You can experiment with algorithms by trying different snippets of code. Once you've learned what works, you can refactor code to be more maintainable. Top level statements simplify programs that are based on console applications. These include Azure functions, GitHub actions. More information, top level statements. What does that say don't use in production? Huh? Where does that say don't use in production? Oh, no. You're misunderstanding that. No. You're misunderstanding that. What they're saying is most developers are going to go in here and say public class friend, most developers are going to do this, and they're going to create everything in here. They're going to dump everything in this file, and it's perfectly legal to do so. You can write your code in here, right? They're not saying that top level statements are bad for production. What they're saying is that obviously this is not production friendly. So once you've got used to doing this, you can say, okay, move this to another file. You can refactor this, and you can move it around. Because all their samples will start with var host equals, something like that. And then this is how you write an app, right? So that's what they're talking about. They're talking about moving them out into actual classes and refactoring and organizing things so that this is just your entry point again. Most developers will pick up the top level statement code and dump everything in one file because that's what new developers do, right? So if you look at any Windows service, etc., now, they're going to look like this. With global usings, this gets just simplified down to this, so it's an entry point. The old day structure. Yeah, anyone working with Laravel knows like this. That's how I used to do PHP. TBD gave me my favorite language. Okay. Oh, man. Okay. On that, I do have to end. I have 9 minutes to walk some dogs, get some breakfast, and start work. Yes, I do want to raid. So who are we raiding? And I want to say thank you very much. I've been watching the view numbers for most of the stream. There's a lot of lurkers. I really do truly appreciate the support. Oh, Tick-Tick's live. Awesome. Thank you. This is a stream that I do want to build. I do want to do more of. I am interested in all sorts of software development. So again, if you haven't, I would recommend joining the Discord. We actually are having a discussion on story pointing. So if you have done that process, you're more than welcome to join in. And yeah. So let's go raid Tick-Tick. Tick-Tick is, just for reference, my stream is I don't swear. I try to keep the language decent and keep it a friendly place for all people, no matter what age or level you're at. Tick-Tick does swear. Tick-Tick is an awesome developer, very clever guy. He's building a platform for Twitch, which he's doing on stream, doing a lot of cool stuff, a lot of cool technology. So please drop him a follow and join me in the raid. So thank you very much for joining me. I appreciate everybody, and I will be back again at 7 a.m. tomorrow, my time, and I'll see you then. Take care, all. Bye.